receive requests every week from people changing their diets about how to use the variety of foods that are available in a macrobiotic human ecology diet, the way we eat and live. So we thought we would provide a little review of the basic food groups, the grains, the beans and the vegetables, and as a reference, this is the first in a series of short videos we will share with you over the coming weeks. And first up, Mr. Tara, know your grains.
Absolutely, you got to know your grains. And we want to start with the whole grains. This is the food that's served as the foundation for the human diet for centuries. The nourishing qualities of eating grain, plus the ability to store grain for long periods of time with little bits of spoilage, have made it the most important single crop in human history. It made it possible for people to survive through periods of drought or pestilence or harmful. It was insurance against the bad times.
And you know, when we talk about whole grains, we're obviously referring to the unrefined cereal grains here that you see in front of us. You know, these cereal grains, or the products that are made from them, are the best for your health. That means that only the inedible husk has been removed, the outside shell of the grain, the cellulose has not been broken. So the micronutrients in the grain are protected, but when the outside cellulose is removed, the process of oxidation occurs, and that's when the grains begin to lose their nutritional value. So, you know, governments recommend all the time, you know, increase your consumption of whole grain, and then they put on pictures of loaves of bread and pancakes and cake, like the world does not need any more cake, right? So they have all these images of breakfast cereals, and it's an inaccurate definition which leads people to choose poor quality grain products with the idea that they actually think they're eating the healthiest option. So most of the bad press for whole grains actually comes from that lack of clarity between these refined carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. So these grains must be eaten in their whole form for nutrient health. Yeah.
Now, a lot of the confusion against whole grains is purposefully generated. It's by those people who support a high consumption of animal food products. I consider most of this propaganda to be misleading at best and completely counterintuitive. Books like Wheat Belly and Grain Brain are poorly disguised advertisements for the Atkins diet and its many more recent incarnations, such as the paleo diet. Now, these low carbohydrate diets can produce short-term weight loss, but they're actually dangerous as a healthy way of eating. So good quality carbohydrates, such as those found in grains and beans and vegetables, that's the best fuel for the human body, and it's the most productive of good health.
You know, there's another issue that we get asked about often, don't we? Phytic acid in grains, and it becomes such a hot topic sometimes. It was there for a short time. The phytic acid, it's a substance that's found in grains and nuts, and it's been labelled as an anti-nutrient. The compound actually binds with minerals in the body and was thought by some to cause mineral loss when eaten. But this compound is easily deactivated. You know, you simply cook the grain, soak the grain overnight, sprout the grain, boil, ferment, or germinating. All of that actually deactivates the phytic acid and frees up minerals for absorption. So it's since it's a very powerful antioxidant, phytic acid may be instrumental in actually reducing the risk of diabetes, heart disease and obesity.
Right. So these grains that we have in front of us, these are foods that came up through the agricultural revolution that started about 10,000 years ago. And that saw the rise of grain cultivation. Among indigenous North American and South American people, the primary grain was maize, which is corn, or quinoa in the high Andes. Oats in the British Isles, buckwheat and barley in Europe, millet and rice in the Near East and the Far East, and wheat and millet in Africa. These grains became synonymous with settled culture. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with rice. Rice has been cultivated in the Far East for 9,000 or 10,000 years, and then slowly spread into the Near East and into Europe. Mediterranean-style cooking has incorporated rice for centuries with dishes like paella and stews and risottos. Grain is probably the most delicious. Rice, naturally sweet, can be enjoyed on a daily basis, as we do, for a complete meal, or you can eat rice with a bean dish, a variety of vegetables, fermented pickles.
And of course, brown rice gives you lots of fibre, and there's a huge lack of fibre in people's diets. Vitamins and minerals are in abundance, small amounts of thiamine and riboflavin, and all these other B vitamins tend to work hand in hand to metabolise the energy from the foods that you eat. So that also supports blood cell formation, and you'll get lots of magnesium and phosphorus and calcium and potassium, etc. And especially a small amount of sodium, actually, which is important for fluid balance and heart functions. The second grain of our choice in our home here is millet. It has been cultivated for at least 10,000 years and eventually spread into Africa, where it's still used to this day. Many people find that roasting millet before using it brings out its sweetness, and oftentimes people use gravies or sauces on top of the millet because it can be quite dry. It's also nice as a breakfast porridge, and sometimes we'll enjoy it that way, but I love to add it to soups and stews in the winter. It's a very alkalising grain and it's very easy to digest. So also good to note here, the serotonin in millet is very calming to your moods. Millet's a very super carbohydrate with lots of fibre, and it's very low in simple sugars also. So millet varieties show high antioxidant activity, and it's very effective alkalising agent. So it's a great food for those actually who suffer from stomach acids. Yeah.
And millet's gluten-free and non-allergenic, so it's a great grain for people who have those sensitivities. The high protein content, which is up to 15%, makes it a substantial addition to any vegan diet. Millet and other whole grains are rich sources of magnesium, a mineral that acts as a cofactor in more than 300 enzymes, including enzymes involved in the body's use of glucose and insulin secretion. Our next grain is barley. The grain has wonderfully warming qualities when eaten, but it's usually associated with brewing and making beer. It's a wonderful food in the colder months. One of the most popular uses for it, of course, is in soups or stews. It makes these dishes creamy and hearty. There's nothing nicer on a cold winter day than a barley vegetable soup. Now, most of the husk has been removed from barley, and so there's a little bit of loss there, but much of the fiber is distributed throughout the grain. Pearl barley is much more refined, but it's still nice to use on occasion.
Yeah, and as a Scottish person,
with the bagpipes in the distance.
I grew up on oats, and they're a typical morning porridge, rolled oats and oatmeal, but the whole grain is nutritionally superior, obviously, but similar to barley, this is also an excellent winter grain, particularly in cold and wet climates. This is due to the fact that it has a lot more fat than other grains, and also you have steel cut oats in the US. They're called pinhead oatmeal here in the UK, or Irish oatmeal. And it's used to make porridge as well, and oat cakes and the likes. My other favourite actually is quinoa. I use it often. I love to use it in salads as well. I make quinoa burgers or pilafs, but it's particularly high in protein, so it's a favourite with many people. Interestingly though, oats actually have more protein than quinoa. Did you know that?
I do now.
Now, this is a grain that thrives in a very dry, high environment, such as the Andes, as Bill said earlier, so that's where it originated. It's still the principal food for many of the native people that live in those high mountain areas, and it's been domesticated for about 7,000 years. Quinoa must be rinsed because it's very, very high sort of saponin in the outer coating, and it can really make the grain taste very bitter.
Right. Now, corn is a grain that's developed in Mesoamerica. In prehistoric times, up till the first Europeans arrived on the continent, most Native American people on the east coast of America, through the southwest and down into Mexico and down into South America, were living on a diet that was completely based around the consumption of corn or maize. And they had hundreds of different varieties of the grain. It can be eaten fresh as sweet corn or ground into a meal. Eaten fresh, it's a really lovely, sweet-tasting food for the late summer months, and a lot of people enjoy it during that time. The dried grain is mostly ground into flour for tortillas or baking. The coarse meal is used for making polenta or porridge. The dry form is always processed and suffers from some nutrient loss, but it's still a good food for any kitchen, and it's very wholesome. Now, the next grain we want to talk about is buckwheat, right? And Now some people who will not be named don't like buckwheat so much, but I myself love it. Right? It's got a hearty, earthy taste. Buckwheat's the most warming of all of the grains. It's been traced back to very cold areas, particularly Mongolia, Tibet, Russia, Finland. Maybe I lived there in a past life,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was cultivated regularly from about 4000 BC. Buckwheat's actually a pseudo-cereal. It's gluten-free, and that makes it a popular substitute for other wheat-based foods. You can use it as a grain, you can use it in soups, you can use it together with sauces. Most people are familiar with it as being used as noodles or as a flour product. In the Balkan areas, it's used in stuffed pastries, kasha knish. In the whole form, it's eaten primarily as kasha and in noodle form, such as Japanese soba noodles, or as a porridge.
And then of course wheat. It's the most widely used of all the cereal grains. Most of it is ground and made into flour. And hard wheat varieties have more gluten in them and are therefore used more popularly to make both noodles and flatbreads. Wheat products are very popular in almost every cuisine around the world in one form or another, but usually in breads. Wheat's very rich in minerals, salts, calcium, magnesium, and a host of everything that's good for you. Since there's really, it's relatively high in gluten content, so some people may find it an advantage to remove wheat from their diet just for a test period to see if they feel any different, if they notice a difference.
Getting the most from grains, using whole grains as a foundation of your diet is very important. They're not only healthy, but they're also economical. Grains can be cooked and stored, be reused up to 5 days, and they can be made into burgers, or they can be mixed in with vegetables or beans. They combine well with almost everything. They can be used in soups and stews, or simply heated and used with a condiment or a sauce. Yeah. Try to have at least 1 or 2 servings of grain a day, and that's what we aim for all the time, and that's what we achieve all the time too. Yeah. Now, coming next is a video that Marlene shot about 10 years ago. In case you think that she aged in the last couple of minutes, but everything in the video is still as valid today as it was in those ancient times.
In those ancient times, because the indigenous people of our world, this is how they survived, this is how we all should survive, because there's nothing new under the sun.
No, and we are the new indigenous
We are the new indigenous, so join the evolution. Next time we'll do beans?
Yeah, we'll do beans.
Okay, next video coming up in a week's time, beans. Thank you all for watching.
Bye now.
We're going to look at the staff of life, and to me that means whole grain. It could be short grain brown rice, it could be quinoa, millet, buckwheat. There's so many, and the diversity in a whole food plant-based diet using these whole grains are just innumerable. It's incredible. For me, the short grain brown rice is the numero uno because it has such a diversity of nutrients, and it is very, very high in glucose, and as we all know, that's what the body runs on. So we're going to look at how to make short grain brown rice today, along with my second top favourite grain, which is quinoa. That's a very high protein grain, and you can use it in burgers or sautés or just an array of different dishes, and they taste amazing with some simple dressings and some steamed vegetables. So this is a very simple class, something that you're going to be able to do within 10-15 minutes in your kitchen. Again, cooking up, rolling over and eating the next day, so you're not tied to the kitchen sink. Something to think about here in terms of why we use whole grains in our diet, and they're so amazing for supporting weight loss because they naturally release sugars throughout the day, so you're not spiking your blood sugar. And a big problem with people on a diet is they're hungry all the time because whatever they're eating is in a refined or processed form. They're hungry within an hour, they're not feeding the body at a cellular level. These grains are so powerful that they're slowly releasing glucose and keeping your energy levels high all day. That's why I'm always like an Energizer bunny from morning till night, because I have 3 different portions of whole grains throughout the day.
either in a burger form. I have breakfast porridge in the morning. In the evening I might just take some from the fridge and steam some rice or whatever vegetable, whatever grain I have in the fridge, and I just prepare it with some vegetables and a dressing. Once you really get into the way of doing this, it's as easy as pie. In the pressure cooker, I've added the 2 cups of rice that I soaked for an hour, and I've added the 4 cups of water with a pinch of sea salt. I'm simply taking the lid. Don't be anxious if you haven't used a pressure cooker before. It's something that's hugely versatile, that you can get a lot of use from the kitchen with using beans and all sorts of delicious stews. 1 pot cooking. Click it into place, pop it on, turn up the burner, and we're going to bring that to pressure. You'll hear it starting to hiss, and then we'll turn it down and let it cook at a very low simmer for 25 minutes. The rice is now ready. It's been cooking for 25 minutes. Then I let the pressure come down on its own, and hey presto, we're just going to open the pan, the pressure cooker lid coming off. Beautifully cooked, pressure cooked brown rice. So we're going to have a few interesting ideas, and I'm going to share them with you, how you can span this out and make delicious meals. 1 cup of quinoa with 2 cups of water. It's really very easy to cook grains, you know, it's just rule of thumb, 1 cup of grains to double the quantity of water. And we're going to take that to the stove, bring it to a simmer, let it cook at a very low heat for about 15 minutes. So lid on the pan, turn up the heat until it comes to a simmer, and then turn it down and leave it for about 15 minutes. So when you see the grain starting to separate, probably 5-10 minutes once it's cooking and absorbing the water, that's what gives the quinoa a lovely fluffy consistency. It's a nice grain to use for making tabbouleh, which is a lovely change from couscous or bulgur, which are refined grains that we sometimes use in the warmer months. It's nicer to bring refined grains into your diet then. It's very autumnal here in Scotland. In fact, it's October the 1st today, so hence my heavy sweater, because it's very cold outside. So we want to use warmer, full whole grain as we come into the colder seasons.